The statement says, when I think of research, I think of clinical trials. Once again, when I think of research, I think of clinical trials. Agree or disagree?
When I think about research, I think about how expensive it's becoming as we continue to advance ourselves technologically. More tools are becoming available for us to capture data in unique ways. I think about the ways in which qualitative research has expanded within the last 50, 60 years and how we have employed new systems of using that data in meaningful ways. So again, I like to see this expansiveness. And I've just personally started to get enthralled with ethnographies, right? Looking at the cultural aspects and how can we ensure that we are enshrining some of those key aspects of communities of color in ways that is digestible to the dominant culture of white people who don't always get what we're talking about. But clinical trials is just one subsection of all the great things that we can get out of research.
I would say I'm on the disagree line and not strongly disagree because I'm a researcher myself and behavioral scientist. And, I too agree with the previous comments that there's a gamut, a wide range of how far you can go with research. Like you can have the qualitative work in terms of like interviews, focus groups, et cetera. You can have quantitative, which could be surveys, secondary data analysis, et cetera. But I disagree because like randomized controlled trials or clinical trials are what's considered the golden standard. And so that's what tends to be driven down a lot of people's throats for so long. And even when you think about things that's happened in the past that we already discussed, such as Tuskegee, such as Henrietta Lacks, those have somewhat been like clinical trials, and they do not have a good name in the Black and brown communities, such that that's why a lot of Black and brown people don't want to do research at all, because they think it's automatically a clinical trial.
My aunt, as a matter of fact, 5 days ago, it's been a year since she passed of cancer. But she lived for 15 years because of a clinical trial. If she would have not had that clinical trial, she would have passed sooner. And so when we went in and they told us there's this clinical tryout, she could try it, or now the treatment is not working. So whenever God's gonna take her, is gonna take her. And as a family, we agreed that she was gonna do the clinical tryout, and that clinical tryout gave her 15 more years. So it was a blessing. So yeah, that's I get emotional because I'm torn because as somebody said, the historical data shows that a lot of the clinical trials were done to Latinos and Black and brown, and it hurt our family. It hurt our families. It hurt our community, and that's why a lot of people don't trust science. That's why people don't want to participate, and that's why before I put in that I play a role, because for us, we have to tell those stories, even though sometimes they're hurtful. But we have to tell the stories that was the past. And in order for us to change the future, we have to participate, and we have to be in the table. Because if we're not in the table, who's going to be telling those investigators, those people that are doing the research, that's the wrong way to do it? You have to do it this way. So it has to be a diverse group of people that are working on the research and also on the trials. Because if they have a trial and they don't try it with different cultures, then that medicine might be only good for that particular person and not all of the other cultures. So that's why it's so important to be diverse.
I feel like I'm standing in a position that nobody else is in. And just to kind of speak on what you said, I think that diversity and inclusion needs to happen not only in the community, but internally, like doing the work. And so what my job is, I go back to me because like it's a special experience for me that I never saw coming, but it's really holding these universities accountable for doing the work, for not just doing enough to scrape by or just to say that they did it, or to go in our community and recruit with the bare minimum like gift cards and stuff like that, because it really doesn't do the job. It skews the numbers. And when you get these numbers, it comes back uneducated Black people versus educated white people. And so we never get a step ahead. And I get a chance to sit and watch not only somebody like me or somebody else that looks like me that's doing the job on the inside being undervalued, but not also being multiplied or recruited. Like, we need more people to be able to be valued inside just as well as outside, so that we can get so this stuff can be palatable for our community. That makes sense. And if you don't get the information from people on the team that look like them and talk like them, then it's never going to be received the right way, because people in the community may not, in our inner city, may not be the most like book smart, but they can definitely sense when things aren't genuine. And that's where you get people that are not willing to participate in these things, because there's already bad blood. And so when you got it on both sides, you got people on the inside not being appreciated, and then you have the people in the community not being taken care of the right way. Then you're kind of in a double negative. So I think holding people accountable for doing the work is the best thing that we can possibly do to move forward.
What I would love to see in my academic community is more excitement about what that could look like in practice. Because if you told me that I've got to walk into a black barbershop and connect with people, or if I have to go and eat, my Spanish is okay, but I'd rather go see Shari and go in with her. And so I'm hoping that my colleagues can see that when we look like the community that we serve, when you've got a colleague down the hall that you can go to and say, hey, there's some data I'm concerned about. Do you want to take a look with me? Do you want to take a drive with me? When you and Patricia were talking about that, I was like, if we had that in our hallways, we could be doing so much more.
I would like to challenge you to think beyond just down the hall, because that person down the hall may not have the full perspective of someone in the community. So somebody like me or the people that's around here hold much more value, because we are the ones really experiencing that.
When you're at a predominantly white institution and you can't know every language, you can't know every culture. And so if you just sit there and you try to, look at the community that didn't sign up for the clinical trial and nobody on your team can tell you why, that's a disservice to that community. So
I'm glad this conversation is going on, just because you're right. We need people from the community, and you're right. It's really challenging to just go into a barbershop and just ask, hey, do you want to participate? And I think it's because we're thinking about what we want to know, and not so much about what the community want to know or what the community needs. So I always encourage people who work from predominantly white institutions to go and talk to maybe an easier way, or a shortcut will be to talk to people who work at community centers like I do, just because we do have that relationship with the community, and we're there. We're in the same circumstances, we're located in the same area, and we know what's going on, but at the same time, we know how to talk with people, and we're the bridge. Yes, and listen to them. And at the same time, thinking about the statement and thinking about, okay, so when I think about science is just clinical research, well, that's mostly what we got invited to, and we're scared of it. So if you are kind of thinking of inviting the community to participate, just also think about other ways of helping the community. So not just with a drug, right? There are so many programs that work well with the predominantly white community, and it's for trying to think about how to manage diabetes or prevent diabetes. So try that in our communities and see if that could also help us, because that is something that you already know that works. It might work for us, it might not, but if you try it, that could help us.